I'm going to be talking to Jack Gibbons, the former Toronto Hydro Commissioner and now chair of the Ontario Clean Air Alliance, about comments made by Ontario Energy Minister Todd Smith about phasing out natural gas for generating electricity in Ontario. So welcome to the interview, Jack.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, there's a very odd situation in Ontario where a lot of electricity is generated by natural gas. So municipalities are worried about rising greenhouse gas emissions. Soon, there will be 3 nuclear plants will be offline, 1 retired, 2 down for refurbishment. So it looks like gas will play a bigger role. And yet with falling costs of renewables, wind and solar, the Ontario government shows almost no interest in renewables. That sounds like an odd situation.
Well, it is very odd, and it certainly makes no economic sense because wind and solar are now our lowest cost sources of new electricity supply. And also Ontario is so lucky to be located right next door to the province of Quebec, which is the 4th largest producer of water power in the world. And Quebec has a large surplus of low-cost electricity, which they would like to export to Ontario. So we've got tremendous opportunities to move to a renewable future and to lower our electricity bills. But unfortunately, Premier Doug Ford is ideologically opposed to renewable energy, and he loves fossil gas and he loves high-cost nuclear. And so he's really out of step with what is in the best interest of Ontario, and he's pursuing an agenda that will increase our greenhouse gas pollution when we should be reducing it.
Now, Minister Smith made some comments to the Independent Electricity System Operator Stakeholder Advisory Committee that seemed a little out of step. He said that a gas phase-out would paralyze efforts to electrify our economy. What do you make of that?
Well, it's just totally false. It makes no sense. You know, Minister Smith is suggesting that he wants to get us onto electric cars, and he wants to get our homes off fossil gas and onto heat pumps. But at the same time, he's proposing to increase the greenhouse gas pollution from our electricity system by 500% or more by 2040. So, you know, if we want to electrify our economy to reduce greenhouse gas pollution, the last thing we should be doing is ramping up our gas-fired electricity generation. So it's just bad faith. Unfortunately, the government of Ontario is not committed to meeting our climate targets.
Now, you mentioned Quebec Hydro being, having surplus low-cost hydropower. And I've interviewed a number of experts, Jack, and I think there's general agreement that hydro has a tremendous value, acting as almost like a battery, acting as storage for intermittent renewables. And it seems like there's just a sensible marriage here between the hydropower capacity in Quebec and Ontario's ability to install wind and solar. And the two of them, if they were linked with more interties and if there was a market mechanism in place, that just seems like a natural, and yet it doesn't, the Ford government doesn't even want to discuss it, never mind entertain it.
Well, absolutely. We all know that the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So wind and solar do need a backup or storage option. And the absolutely lowest cost storage option for wind and solar is Hydro-Quebec's giant reservoirs. And we should be pursuing it. The Premier of Quebec and Hydro-Quebec want to be the battery for Ontario's wind and solar. But Premier Ford's just not pursuing it, and it reflects the fact that the 2 biggest power companies in Ontario are Ontario Power Generation and Bruce Power. They supply more than 80% of our electricity, And the last thing they want is competition from wind and solar and competition from Hydro-Quebec. And so that's the problem. We've got these very powerful vested interests, two very large electric utilities in Ontario that don't want the government of Ontario to pursue the cleanest and lowest cost options to keep our lights on.
I had the opportunity to interview the OPG's Vice President of Nuclear Development, and it seems to me like that utility is pretty much committed to the development of small modular nuclear reactors. But the earliest that the first one could come online, assuming that they can actually get it designed and built, is 2028, but more than likely probably after 2030. And it seems like the government as well is betting on SMRs, but that seems like an odd bet, or it seems like a roll of the dice, if you will, given that there have been no SMRs built in the world. We don't know if the technology will work, and we don't know at what price it will produce electricity.
Well, that's absolutely right. But we do know that the price of power from a new nuclear reactor will be very high. Even the nuclear industry has admitted that. They say the cost of electricity would be 16.3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is more than double the cost of new wind or solar. So it makes absolutely no sense to be pursuing this project. But Doug Ford wants to build a new nuclear reactor in the GTA, and that will just mean higher electricity rates. You know, Doug Ford got elected in 2018 on a promise to reduce our electricity bills by 12%, but he hasn't kept his promise. Rates continue to rise. And if we start building new, very high-cost nuclear reactors, then our rates are going to go up. And again, as you point out, these technologies are just PowerPoint ideas. They haven't actually been developed, the technology. The technology has not been approved for use in Canada by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. So this is a project that makes no sense to pursue. And the people of Ontario don't want Ontario to be building new nuclear reactors before we've got a solution for the toxic radioactive waste that they will produce that will last for hundreds of thousands of years.
Jack, final question. What is your organization doing to promote to oppose the greater use of natural gas and I suppose more nuclear and promoting wind and solar and storage and a relationship with Quebec Hydro? What is your organization doing?
Well, we're doing everything we can to get the message out to the public and to our political leaders that we should be phasing out the gas-fired power plants, to get out the message that a new nuclear reactor is high cost and high risk, and to get the message out that if we invest in energy efficiency, if we invest in wind and solar, and if we buy low-cost water power from Quebec, we can phase out the gas-fired power plants by 2030 and also lower our electricity bills. And that's what the people of Ontario want. So we need to get that message out so that they will put pressure on Premier Ford to change course.
Jack, thank you very much. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you. My pleasure.